In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to finally stop procrastinating. I'm Jeffrey, I'm a licensed therapist, and procrastination is something I see so many people struggling with. For some, it stops them from reaching their full potential. They have the skills, they have the talent, but they keep putting things off until the last minute. For others, procrastination hurts the quality of their work because they rush through at the last second. And for almost everyone, it creates this low level of constant anxiety because deep down, you know there's something you're avoiding. You can be watching TV, scrolling on your phone, even be out with friends, but that thing you need to do is sitting in the back of your mind and it is draining you. Before we get into how to fix this, you need to know why procrastination happens in the first place. If you don't understand this pattern, you will fall right back into it. So why do you procrastinate? Most people think procrastination is a time management problem. It is not. It's an emotional regulation problem. Here is how the cycle usually plays out. You have something important to do. Maybe it's a homework assignment, a set of forms to fill out, or a work project that you've been putting off. You want the end result of having it done, but the moment you think about starting, you know it's going to bring up uncomfortable emotions such as anxiety, frustration, boredom, self-doubt, and your brain doesn't like that. It wants to avoid discomfort, so it looks for the quickest way to make those feelings go away. That's why you suddenly find yourself scrolling on social media, watching random YouTube videos, snacking even when you're not hungry, rechecking your notifications, or playing a quick game on your phone. These distractions aren't random. They're your brain's way of trading emotional discomfort for temporary relief, but the task is still there, and the deadline gets closer and the pressure builds. That pressure turns into stress, and eventually your body releases a surge of adrenaline, and that's what finally gets you to act. You're not starting because you found motivation. You're starting because your body hit the panic button. But here's the problem. When you only act under that level of stress, you train your brain to believe that it needs adrenaline to get started. Without it, the task feels impossible, and over time that conditioning makes early action harder, not easier. It's not that you're lazy or bad at managing your time. You built a habit loop where emotional discomfort automatically triggers avoidance until panic kicks in. When you've trained your brain to only get moving under pressure, it can feel like there's no other way to work. But there are, because what you've built is just a habit, and habits can be retrained. There are really two main paths out of this cycle. Number one, learn to work with your adrenaline. Instead of letting it build to the point of crisis, you can harness smaller control bursts of urgency that keep you engaged without sending your body into full stress mode. This way, you still get the focus that adrenaline provides, but you're not relying on a last-minute panic to make progress. Number two, learn to start without adrenaline. This is about building the skill of action without waiting for pressure. You learn to tolerate the uncomfortable feelings that come up at the beginning of a task, and you create enough momentum early on that the task becomes easier to continue. In a moment, I'm going to share 7 techniques. Some will help you use your adrenaline in a healthier, more controlled way. Others will help you work without needing it at all. The goal isn't to force yourself into one method. It's to experiment, notice what helps you take action, and keep the strategies that actually work for you. Technique number 1, self-imposed deadlines using Parkinson's law. If you're someone who tends to wait until the very last minute, this first technique lets you work with your adrenaline instead of against it. Parkinson's law says that work expands to fill the time you give it. If you allow yourself 5 weeks for a project, it will almost certainly take 5 weeks, often because you delay starting until there's enough pressure. But if you give yourself 5 days, you'll probably find a way to get it done in 5 days. You can use this to your advantage by creating shorter self-imposed deadlines that trigger just enough urgency for you to get moving without the full-blown panic of a real last-minute scramble. For example, if a work presentation is due Friday, set your real deadline for Wednesday at 3 p.m. Put it in your calendar, write it on a sticky note, and treat it like it's an actual due date. For something larger like a research paper, break it into micro deadlines. Introduction by Monday morning, section 1 by Monday afternoon, section 2 by Tuesday, and so on. Each small due date becomes its own mini source of momentum. The key is commitment. If you treat these self-imposed deadlines like loose suggestions, your brain will see through the trick and you'll fall back into the old pattern. but if you enforce them as seriously as real deadlines, you create that controlled sense of urgency that you've been relying on just without waiting for the panic to hit. Technique number 2, mission impossible. If technique number 1 works by creating urgency through deadlines, this one works by creating urgency through play. Psychologist Dr. Stephen Hayes suggests reframing your tasks so it's not a boring obligation, but a challenge. He calls it mission impossible. The idea is simple. When the brain sees something as a game, it drops some of its resistance. It becomes curious, competitive, and more willing to engage. Here is how you can use it. If you've been avoiding cleaning your office, set a 15-minute timer. Hit play on the Mission Impossible theme and see how much you can accomplish before the music stops. If you have a backlog of dull emails, pretend you're a spy in a high-stakes operation where each email is a secret code that must be cracked before the time runs out. This works because it shifts the emotional tone of the task. Instead of approaching it with dread, you're approaching it with curiosity and playfulness. That slight adrenaline boost you get from treating it like a game keeps you moving without the full-blown stress of a real crisis. And unlike waiting until the last minute, you can trigger this state on demand whenever you need to get started. Technique number 3, pair the unpleasant with the enjoyable. The first 2 techniques relied on urgency, one through deadlines, one through play. This one is different. Instead of trying to amp yourself up, you soften the edges of the task so starting feels a little bit less like a battle. One of the easiest ways to do that is to pair something tedious with something you genuinely enjoy. By blending the unpleasant with the pleasant, you change the emotional flavor of the experience. It's no longer pure drudgery. It's a mix of I don't love this and this part's actually nice, which makes your brain less resistant to getting started. Here is how it works in practice. Doing laundry? Put on a podcast you love while you fold clothes. You might start for the laundry, but you'll stay for the story. Writing a long report? Play background music that puts you in a good mood and makes you want to keep typing. Organizing your kitchen? Let a favorite comedy play in the background so you're smiling while you sort everything out. When you do this consistently, your brain starts associating the tedious task with the enjoyable element. Over time, that association can make it easier to start because your mind no longer views the task as something to avoid at all costs. It becomes a more balanced, approachable experience. Technique number 4, the 2-minute commitment. While pairing something unpleasant with something enjoyable works by making the task feel lighter, this technique works by making the start feel almost effortless. One of the biggest reasons we procrastinate is because our brain exaggerates how hard the task will be. It looks at the whole thing, every step, every potential obstacle, and decides that's too much right now. The 2-minute commitment sidesteps that resistance by shrinking the starting point down to something so small it's almost impossible to say no to. Here's how you use it. If you've been putting off vacuuming the living room, commit to just 2 minutes. That might include plugging in the vacuum and doing one small section, but that is it. If you've been avoiding updating your resume, open the document and make a single edit. Change a date, add one bullet point, fix just one typo. Most of the time, once you get over the starting hump, momentum takes over and you end up doing more than you planned. But even if you do stop after those 2 minutes, you've still made progress. You've gone from 0 to something, and that's often the hardest leap to make. The beauty of this approach is that it removes the mental weight. You're not committing to finishing the whole thing, you're just committing to a tiny step that makes the next one a little easier. And if you repeat that pattern, those small steps start adding up faster than you may think. Technique number 5, the Pomodoro Technique. If the 2-minute commitment is about breaking through the starting wall, this technique is about keeping your focus once you've begun. The Pomodoro Technique is straightforward. You work for 25 minutes, then take a 5-minute break. Those short bursts of focused effort prevent your brain from feeling like it has to run a marathon. The breaks are long enough to recharge you, but short enough to stop you from losing momentum entirely. Here is how you can put it into practice. If you need to write a long article, set a timer for 25 minutes, work until it rings, then stand up, stretch, and get some water before diving into the next round. If you're studying for an exam, dedicate each 25-minute block, each Pomodoro, to a single topic or chapter. After completing 4 of them, take a longer 15 to 30-minute break to fully reset. The beauty of this method is that it helps you stay engaged without draining your mental energy all at once. Instead of working until you burn out, you build in recovery points that keep your mind sharp. Technique number 6, the cold exposure boost. Sometimes the hardest part isn't maintaining focus, it's getting enough energy to start in the first place. That's where cold exposure comes in. Cold exposure works by giving your nervous system a quick, powerful jolt increasing alertness and waking you up almost instantly. This could be as simple as splashing cold water on your face, rinsing your hands under cold water for 30 seconds, or if it's safe for you, a short, brisk, cold shower. It works because the sudden temperature change triggers a release of norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter that increases focus and readiness. And by comparison, starting your work feels much less intimidating than it did a minute ago. This isn't about shocking yourself into misery. It's about giving your body a controlled wake-up call so your brain has an easier time getting into gear. Even a small cold exposure ritual can become the spark that replaces waiting for the last-minute panic. Technique number 7, public accountability. If you've ever promised someone you'd do something and then magically found the motivation to follow through, you've experienced the power of accountability. When you make your commitment visible to others, you create a healthy pressure to deliver, not because you're panicking, but because you want to keep your word. Here is how to use it. Tell a friend, family member, or coworker what you plan to finish and by when, or post a quick update in a group chat or online community where you know people will check in. Maybe pair up with someone who also wants to make progress and send each other end of the day updates on what you've done. The key is to choose someone whose opinion matters to you, enough that you'll feel a little nudge to follow through, but not so much that it creates an enormous amount of anxiety. Over time, this builds a habit of delivering your commitments without relying on a last-minute rush because you've built in a steady source of external motivation. Whichever technique or combination of techniques you decide to use, the real key is reinforcing the behavior you want to keep. When you start earlier than you normally would, acknowledge it. Give yourself credit. Even something as small as saying "nice job" out loud can help your brain register that this was a win. You can also build in small rewards that make the early start feel worth it. Maybe it's taking a guilt-free break once the task is done, enjoying a favorite snack, or allowing yourself time for a hobby that you usually save for later. The reward doesn't have to be big. It just has to signal to your brain, "This felt good, let's do it again." Over time, this positive reinforcement rewires the association you have with starting early. Instead of seeing it as a forced discipline, your brain begins to connect it with satisfaction, relief, and even pride. And that little change makes it far more likely that you'll keep doing it. So remember, procrastination isn't about being lazy, it's about avoiding discomfort. When you understand that, you can decide whether you want to use your adrenaline with smart deadlines or learn to lean in without it. Either way, you're breaking the cycle. That's it for today's video. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you, and see you in the next one.